Hi guys, I'm Si and welcome to Ex Podcast Nation, the home of the Andy Campbell Football Show, and this is episode number 126. The show is available live on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. Ace Podcast Nation, of course, your home to many other great shows and series featuring top guests, expert analysts and more. So please do give us a follow on social media, subscribe to that YouTube channel and click the bell for notifications every time we upload or go live. And of course, you can get the audio versions of every single show we do, the usual radio or podcast platforms. Just search Ace Podcast Nation. Over 400 shows and series there on various subjects. But just as we wait for those various platforms, just to fill up a bit and some of the stragglers and latecomers to join us, a big thank you to Black Diamond Sports. As ever, Black Diamond Sports is a global sports agency representing sports stars from around the world. For more information on what they're doing, you can visit their social media pages and their website, the links to which are both in the description below and the closing credits at the end of the show. And today's sponsor, as ever, is Bespoke Financial. Darren Ralston of Bespoke Financial currently giving away a free will worth £140 with any new policy which is taken out. So please do check him out, give him a call, and don't miss out on this amazing offer. Tell them that we sent you. They've looked after Andy for various years with several different policies, including the critical illness and the injury cover. They are truly top of their field, and they provide award-winning service. We are very proud to partner with such a brand, and we thank them for sponsoring the show. Getting a bit tongue-tied there, I was. Too much information to give out at once, but let's introduce the main men. So first of all, as ever, my co-host with the most, the goal collector, the fox in the box, and still the king of the Millennium Stadium. He is David Jones's favourite son, ex-Cardiff City and Middlesbrough striker, the speed demon, Mr. Andy Campbell. How goes it, my friend?
Good evening, Si. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, really looking forward to tonight. Got another amazing guest on with a story to tell. Just talking off air, I think we're going to uncover some really good anecdotes and some good things. Yeah, really excited. It's been a long week. Last week, obviously we know football on. I think it's that I think Harry Redknapp came out and said something about international football is just losing its. It's losing its appeal, and you know what? I'm a big English fan and love my country and love watching. But this has been a really, really long week.
Yeah, it's not the same without the Championship every week and the Premier League as well. The international football is just not doing it for me like it used to. I don't know what it is, but I'm very excited to welcome tonight's guest. He's a former Wales international himself. He also played for Swansea City, Crystal Palace, and of course, the mighty Cardiff City. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce Mr. David Giles. Welcome, David. How are you, mate?
I'm fine, Simon. I'm fine, thank you.
Great to have you on,
Good
David.
stuff.
Really pleased. Thanks for giving your time up.
Good?
Yeah, no, fabulous, mate. As I say, we crossed paths obviously during my time at City, and you know what I mean. Always great to talk to you. You know what I mean. Always fun, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your story. It's going to be great.
Yeah, well, I was actually what Simon just said about the Millennium. I actually was there, Andy, that game. I was doing commentary for a local radio station, and I have to say it was probably one of the best playoff goals you'll ever see. It was an absolutely fantastic goal.
Thank you very much. Yeah, listen, it was you know what I mean. Listen, it was one of those moments which no one can ever take away from you. You know what I mean, and people. I tell this story all the time, but people say about when you leave a club, people say people will never forget that moment, and you just think it's a tongue-in-cheek moment, and people will say anything to get rid of you. But no, Cardiff people, you know what I mean, Welsh people, passionate people, they just don't forget, do they? And people just don't forget those kind of moments and memories in your career, which is amazing times.
So, David, what we like to do?
Don't, Andy, and I can see, remember it. No, I was going to say that Andy came off the bench. You know, it wasn't a case, and they actually, I'm sure that it was Robert Earnshaw they took off, who was Cardiff at the time. And Andy came on, I think it was about 20 minutes ago, and Oh, it was an absolute stunning goal. Volley, Andy, wasn't it? Left foot?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, left foot. Yeah, I didn't score many of them, to be honest. But it was, like you say, you know what I mean? I remember, you know what I mean, you hear everything when there's a big crowd there. And obviously, you know what I mean, with the way the stadium was, and with it being a high-profile game. And I remember the murmurs of bringing Ernie off and me coming on and thinking, do you know what I mean? The manager must have been thinking, last chance saloon for him, because if we'd have lost the game, I think he probably would have ended up losing his job, because he made that decision to to bring off a player who scored 35, 40 goals that season, to bring on me who hadn't played much throughout the season because of the form Ernie was on. You know what I mean? So it was a big call at the time.
Yeah, he knew, Andy. He
Yeah,
knew.
it was a
He knew,
big call.
yeah,
But as we all know, you can always say after the event, but it was the right call.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, listen, I'll never doubt.
And
I'll never doubt
I
Lenny.
remember
I'll never
as well,
doubt
Andy, you
Lenny.
had a lot of ginger hair then.
Yeah, no. Well, yeah, I don't know where it's gone now. It just all just rolls into one, like, you know. So it's unrecognisable. But yeah, just I blame COVID, but no, I can't really blame. I can't blame anything. I look better. I look younger.
So, David, what we like to do to start us off is we have Magnificent Seven.
You look good.
A little bit of a delay, I think. Okay. So, what we like to do, David, we're going to go with the Magnificent Seven, where I ask you 7 quick-fire questions, and you just answer, the first answer which comes to mind. You can give an explanation if you want, but nothing too taxing, just to get the viewers, let them know what your tastes are, so to speak.
Okay.
Okay, David Giles, Magnificent Seven. First question, Messi or Ronaldo?
Ronaldo.
I think you froze up a bit. Did you
say?
Yeah, no. I think you just froze up a little bit, so I wasn't sure. I think you said Ronaldo, didn't you?
I said Ronaldo. Yeah.
Okay. And then we've got Cardiff City or Swansea City.
Oh, thanks, Simon. That's a great one. Listen, at the end of the day, I'm a Cardiff boy. I'm born and bred in Cardiff, and I'm a big believer that you should follow or support the club from the town, city you're from. So, as much as I enjoyed playing for Swansea and did well for them, it'll always be Cardiff.
Love that answer.
Let's be honest, there was only one answer there.
I know, but I love that answer. I love that answer
of course.
for many reasons, though, because there's a justification behind it, and for me, the justification is always the right answer.
Absolutely. Next question is favorite TV show.
Oh, that's a good one. At the moment, I think it's the one about the Queen. It's on Sky.
The Crown.
It's all about the royal
the Crown,
family.
yeah.
The royals.
Yeah, the Crown. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Okie dokie.
It's that good. I couldn't remember the name.
Next one is being a manager or working in the media.
Being a manager, obviously for financial reasons.
Sure. Next one, who's the best manager you ever played under?
Oh, that's a good one. I played under some good managers. I played under Alan Muller, ex-England captain, played in the World Cup. Mike England, the Welsh manager, was a great manager. But I'd have to say John Toshak. John Toshak was absolutely football. I wouldn't say as a person and his general knowledge of things, but on football was top class.
Great answer.
Good stuff. Great stuff.
Great answer.
Who is the angriest teammate you've ever had?
The angriest teammate. That would probably be an ex-Cardiff player called Phil Dwyer. Didn't like to
Good
give,
shout. Good
didn't
shout.
like anyone gave
Good
the ball,
shout.
and he let you know as well.
Good shout. But for me, though, Si, that's and David, that's how football should be. You know that Roy Keane was like it throughout his career. You know what I mean? There was other people who did it. You know what I mean? And demanded excellence week in, week out. And for me, I don't mind that. It keeps everybody on your toes.
100%. And then the final question is...
Oh, without a doubt. I think... Yeah, he's dead right, Andy.
The final question, David, is, in your opinion, who is the greatest Welshman who's ever lived? It doesn't have to be football related.
Oh, that's easy one to answer, really, that, Simon. It's got to be the king, Barry John.
Nice. I like that. I like that a lot.
Great answer.
I like it a lot. Okay, so that's the Magnificent Seven with David Giles, and that was really interesting in itself. I enjoyed that a lot. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move into the Tell Me Why questions. Oh, there we go. All right, David will be back now. There was a bit of a time delay, so I'm hoping when David comes back, the delay will disappear a bit, fix itself. It's the joys of technology, mate.
It is, yeah. Si, I feel really old. What was it? Reece David Evans. He was 12 when that goal went in. 12 years old.
Oh,
that makes me feel ridiculous, by the way. And then Donna Perry, by the way. I thought we were friends. I wasn't happy when Mr. Campbell came on. I was like, no. To be honest, I'll be honest. I'm sure my mum and dad said the same thing. That they didn't want me to come on for various reasons. They heard the murmurs. They heard the certain things that were happening, and then all of a sudden, well, the rest is history, as they say it. So you know what I mean. No regrets now.
Yeah, in fairness, like Ernie was the golden boy, wasn't he, that season? Like he scored, he's got 30 plus goals.
He's got 3 goals in every game he played, didn't he? You know what I mean? He was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. But there were certain games which happened to everybody, which just people can play well. And Danny Shitu and Clark Carlisle on the day played very well, but just couldn't handle Gareth Wally's pass.
James Costley says I was 4, nearly 5.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. I was old enough to drink. That's all I know. But that's, we're old. We're old.
You're old as me.
I am, yeah. Just I'm about a year behind you, I think. I'm 40 this year.
You'll have celebrated like I celebrated it.
Oh, mate, I was still outside the City Arms at about 4 o'clock in the morning singing Peter Thorne songs. It was amazing, magical. It's the best night of my life.
I raised you 4 a.m. till Tuesday.
Yeah.
That was
a week later.
In my defence, it was a Sunday, wasn't it? So yeah, well, it wasn't. It doesn't really sound that good, was it? If it was a Saturday, that would have been a good achievement.
It was good. It was a wicked day, like because I had tickets, and I didn't have great tickets, but I had tickets. I was just happy to have them. And then someone contacted me and said, "Oh, I've got these 2 tickets on the halfway line in the middle tier." I was like, "All right, okay." So I was able then to give my tickets to my brother, my younger brother, who was really keen to go, but he's not like bang into his football. Like he supports Cardiff, but he doesn't go all the time. He just sort of keeps an eye on the results. And I was able to give them to him. And then me and my mate went and sat in these amazing seats.
I think it's one of those moments,
one
of those moments that history-wise that you wanted to be there. And if you were there, you were glad to be there because it's going to be notorious for a very long time, if not forever, for the folklore Cardiff fans and City.
Yeah, 100%, mate.
You know what I mean? Because I remember the drive to the game. You know what I mean? And the drive to the game was just all you could see was blue. I know QPR wore blue as well, but I mean proper blue. You know what I mean? That it was Cardiff all the way. And you know what I mean? If we'd have had half the fans in the stadium, which we saw on the way to the stadium, then we could have filled it 5 times over.
Yeah, spot on, mate. There's 2 questions which I really want to ask you, but there's 2 subjects I want to talk about. But they're in the Tell Me Whys, so I don't want to bring them up yet until David comes back in, which is a bit frustrating because I'm very keen to talk about them because I've got some views, some words to say. But in the meantime, has anything like stuck out for you, mate, from the international break? I haven't just not enjoyed it. I got to be honest.
Listen, I've watched 2 England games. I've watched 2 England wins. I've watched 2 England clean sheets. I'm a passionate English person man. As everybody knows, I love my country. You know what I mean? I played for my country. I love it, but it's just not the same as Premier League football and Championship football. Listen, I saw two teams who, one of them was it the Faroe Islands or San Marino, whoever they played the first game, and all they did is sat behind the ball and just ruined the game of football. The second game, Albania at home, they ruined a game of football again. And for me, if you're going to ruin a game of football, don't apply to be in the World Cup. I just don't understand it. If you're going to try and do it, go and try and win a game. Make a name for yourself. You know what I mean? For me, if it's not going to be done good and proper, then don't do it.
Yeah, I can't even get started, mate, on some of the World Cup games and teams at the moment. I find it a bit depressing. But right, David, how are you, mate? Sorry about that. I don't know. Your connection just dropped a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think we're still a little bit behind down here, Simon, in Wales. The connection has never been very good.
It seems to be nice and clear now.
I've had a word with the fella on top of the mountain there. He's turned the aerial the other way.
There we go. That's
just tell him to stand still, David. Yeah, just tell him to stand still. Whatever he's doing, just stand still. It's like we used to do when we were kids with the aerial. I know my dad's watching the show because he's put in a few comments, but my dad, this is how it used to be.
You, didn't he?
I know he did, but this is my dig back. This is my dig back. My dad used to make me stand next to the TV holding the aerial just so that I could watch it. Yeah, like that. Exactly like that.
On your hand, just twisted.
Yeah.
Right. Right then, David. So what we're going to do now is what I like to call Tell Me Why. So basically, I'm going to ask you and Andy a question or give you a subject, and then for 60 seconds, you kind of answer it or talk about it. Would you like to go first or second, David?
Oh, I think it's always important to go second.
There we go. So this might be tricky for you, Andy, because it's about Welsh football. But you never know. We'll see. Okay. We'll see. So the first question for Tell Me Why. Meanwhile, in a sweet little lies. Right.
Might surprise everybody with my knowledge.
Here we go then. So it's not like a really difficult one. The question is, or the subject is, how Robson Kanu, Rabi Matondo, and Tyler Roberts all sent home for protocol breach from Wales' international camp. Discuss. Andy, your time starts now.
I think the Welsh FA have set their standard out that if anybody does break any kind of rule, that they're not allowed anywhere near the first team squad. You look at the manager's not there, so they've set their president now that if the players break any kind of rule, that they're sent away as well. And listen, if players do break rules, for me, it opens a door for somebody else. There's always young players. There's always players who want it, are desperate to play for the countryside. We spoke about a certain Cardiff City midfielder who didn't get the opportunity, and he came out public and said that he wasn't involved. And this is probably the reason why that these players, Will Borks, week in, week out, playing the best of his ability at the minute. He's playing really well. Didn't get an opportunity.
Yes.
And for me, this is players need to realise how lucky they are. You know what I mean? You get one chance playing as a professional footballer and one chance as a national team player. You know what I mean? You wear that shirt with pride. You know what I mean? The fans adore you as a player. And if you are going to break rules, protocols like Phil Foden did for England, and Greenwood, you know what I mean? For me, game over. You should be out.
Spot on, then. You've got 2 seconds left. We'll let you off those 2 seconds.
Good, Dan.
So, David, same subject. It's maybe a bit harder to go second, we'll say. But what do you think of the whole the trio being sent home? And your 60 seconds starts now.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with Andy. It's unacceptable. You know, that they are playing for their country. I've been privileged to be in that position, and it wasn't probably as strong the way it is now. You know, obviously not before the game, but on a Wednesday, players would go out and have a drink together and socialise. But to do what they've done, broken the rules, you know, it's unfair to the other lads. Again, as Andy says, as players leave the squad, it gives an opportunity to someone else. And to be honest, if the lads who come in do well, and I hope they do well, I don't see why any of them three should be brought back in unless they do something out of their skin. How Robson Kanu, come on, he should know better. He had a fantastic Euros in 2016. He scored a great goal. Yes, he's not playing on a regular basis at the moment, but he should be setting examples to the young lads. And I'm sorry, it's just not acceptable. And the other two lads should be, well, they all
and that's just 60 seconds there. Well done, David. You're the first. I think you're the first guest to go the full 60 seconds.
And could have gone more, by the way. And do you know what? And do you know what I really enjoyed about that, David, and things you said there? Hal Robson-Kanu was out of the national team for so long. You know what I mean? He was desperate to come back in. You know what I mean? And now he's done. I just don't understand it. You know what I mean? Like you just said there, we've got the Euros coming up in the summer. Players should be whiter than white. They should be cleaner than clean. I don't understand this side for me.
It's bizarre, isn't it? A couple of good points in the chat. Rhys David Evans says, to be honest, would those three names be in the starting lineup for Wales on whenever the next game is? Probably not. So if it was Bale or Ramsey or Allen, Kiefer Moore, whoever, would they still have sent them home? Because from what I can gather, it was just that they were out of their rooms later than what they should have been. However, as I think it was I can't remember which one of them said it. One of them, Roberts, said, rules are rules, and they knew that they were breaking the rules. So it is what it is, really. If you know what the rules are and you choose to break them, it's kind of your own fault. But,
there's no point having rules then, is there? You know what I mean? If you're going to have rules, you have it for everybody. You know what I mean?
Hal Robson-Kanu, mate, is the one which that's the only one that annoys me, I think, genuinely, because he retired from international football, then decided, actually, I want to still play, and then to get back in the side. And kind of, you should know better, really.
I totally agree. And you know what, as well?
Yeah.
Hopefully, these players come back with responsibility, come back with performance, and repay the manager back, who's Pagey, or manager back, which is Ryan Giggs, and repay the fans back with some good performances because they deserve better than this.
Yes. What were you going to say then, Dave?
I don't get that. I was going to say, with the technology sign we got today, why do they have to go to their rooms to see one another? They can do what we're doing now. They can go on Zoom or whatever, FaceTime. They've got their phones. It's just silly, absolutely silly. And it sounds, when you say that they were out of their rooms, perhaps that sounds a bit petty, but the rules are the rules, and you've got to stick to that.
Yeah, especially in COVID times, there's a reason why things are so tight, and they've got these bubbles because they're trying to get everything back up and running as best they can. And it's
as well, rest and recuperation just as important as training. You know what I mean? If they're being given time off training and then they're gallivanting around the hotel and doing things they shouldn't be, then they're not listening. They're not listening to what they're told to do. You know what I mean? If I'm told to go to training at 9 o'clock, I turn up at 10 past. I broke a rule. What comes with breaking a rule? You know what I mean? I'm going to get told off. I'm going to get fined. I'm going to get kicked out of the squad. Yeah. It's the same thing. A rule's a rule, and that's being late to a game, to training. Yeah. You know what I mean? You look at what was the Arsenal player who got the Arsenal centre forward who got dropped for the Premier League game because he turned up late to the game. Aubameyang.
Got dropped from the Tottenham game, didn't he?
Yeah, so he's the biggest name player, captain, Tottenham, Arsenal captain. He got dropped for that game. You know what I mean? No football is bigger than any team or country or nation or camp for me.
Two great questions from the live chat. Will, first of all, says Johnny Williams. Will Vokes is ahead of Johnny Williams for Cardiff City, but behind him for Wales, and it kind of shows the difference that managers have in their opinions of players, really, and also they've got their favourites, the players they trust. But Will Vokes was unlucky. But Rhys David Evans asked the question, who sent him home? Was it Robert Page's decision or was it Ryan Giggs' decision?
Well, nobody will ever find this out, though, will they? Because Page is obviously running things while he's there. But, Ryan Giggs is making the decisions from behind. And for me, regardless who's made the decisions, the players have got to understand that they've brought the rules, they've done something that they shouldn't have been doing, and you move on very quickly and just see what's what from going forward. Because if other people do it, Gareth Bale does it next week, he's going to get the same punishment.
Yeah, 100%. Right, David, we got our second question now. Do you want to go second again, or would you like to go first?
You have to, yeah. No, you're right. It's
right. David's broken up a bit there. Don't know what's going on with that connection. It's a bit ropey. It's an interesting one, Anne, isn't it, with that? Would they have sent Gareth Bale home, is the question.
Well, listen, look at England side.
say no.
Look at England. Probably two of England's most promising young players. Phil Foden, Mason Greenwood both got kicked out of their camp.
Yeah.
If it was being Harry Kane, would they have done it? I believe they would have done. Because
Yeah, they would have, but they've got the depth to. If they'd sent Harry Kane home, they'd have played Mason Greenwood or they'd have played Phil Foden. Wales don't have that depth. They are so dependent on your Gareth Bales, your Aaron Ramseys that I don't know. I'd like to think that maybe they would have still done it, but they would have still sent him home regardless of who the player was. But it's questionable, should we say? So, the second question, Andy, your first is
Simon.
If David, if I'm breaking up, or if because your connection's dropped a little bit, the best thing to do is to go back out and then come back in, and it'll reset it again.
Yeah, no, it's you're breaking up a bit, Simon. So
yeah, if you go back out and then come back in, and then it'll clear itself back up. Yeah, so we've got some good comments, mate, in the chat, and it's quite interesting. It's brought up a bit of a debate, mate. So let's have a look. Donna Perry says she wasn't happy with Kiefer Moore playing against Mexico. Would rather he had just played against Belgium in the competitive game, and I think that's fair. Like the players who've played week in, week out for Championship teams and Premier League teams, they should have been rested in the friendly against Mexico. There's no need to, because I didn't even think they needed to fit that game in, to be honest with you.
You just took the words out of my mouth. What is the point of having a friendly? You know what I mean? Because there's not space for 3 games in this window. You know what I mean? Unless the 3 competitive games and they've got to be done. If you have 2 competitive games in this window, then just have the middle game as a training camp, as a togetherness to get the group together, to work on certain things in and off the training pitch. Have a game against the 21s. Do something between yourselves. That's fine. You know what I mean? You can see more players doing what they need to do. You can impress more people. But did they really need to play? Was it Mexico that played? Did they really need to play the team? For me, no. You know what I mean? You're getting more risk for injury. You know what I mean? You're getting the business end of the season. I'm guessing Cardiff City manager, club, fans, everybody associated with the club would not be happy if Kiefer Moore or any other footballer gets injured coming up to this time of the season and Cardiff City don't get in the playoffs as a result of it. You know, I just think it's absolutely like madness. You know what I mean? I look at you're on about strength and depth, but I watch the England games very closely, team selections, and Jose Mourinho asked Gareth Southgate to not overuse Harry Kane, so he didn't. Did he play him in all games? Didn't come on in the first game, so he was subbed, didn't put him on. You know what I mean? Which is absolutely fantastic. Yes, they were playing San Marino or Faroe Islands, whichever one it was, I can't remember. But for me, it's irrelevant. You know what I mean? If you've got a player who's going to burn out very quickly with an injury problem like Harry's had or Kiefer's had, you know what I mean? Kiefer pulled his hamstring not so long ago. You can't risk these kind of players. You know what I mean? They need a rest. They haven't had a rest for about a year and a half. Some of them. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean? He's gone from playing for Wigan in a struggling side week in, week out, minute, and then he signs for Cardiff City. No pre-season, no time to get going, and games constant all the way through, and it's a difficult one. And then it's 2 games a week, solid all the way through the end of the season. So for me, I don't agree with it.
Spot on. This is why Fergie used to pull his players out all the time, isn't it? Basically, of international friendlies and stuff, because the international managers wouldn't consider how many games they played and if they were burnt out or if they'd not long had a long-term injury, if they just wanted to play them.
Sorry, but you'll be more of an expert for my next question. Did Ryan Giggs turn up for international friendlies?
No, not very often.
So what? So as a manager, can he expect his players to turn up for international friendlies? Competitive games are different. Competitive games you need to play in.
I suppose they're already out there, aren't they? They're playing. It's sandwiched in between 2 competitive games. So
well, have a bigger squad. You call it a B game and call up some of the 18s or call up some of the 17s or call up someone.
Yeah, I agree, mate.
You know what I mean? I just think
you said in the chat the UEFA say they have to play 3 games in the international break, so that if they haven't got 3 competitive games, they play an extra friendly. But Craig makes a good point. So obviously everyone generally agreed with what me and you were saying about friendly, but he says Mexico being a top 10 side will boost Wales's world ranking and help them move to the next category. And obviously historically Wales have struggled in the group qualifications because they're always got like 2 or 3 top teams in their group.
But
So
I thought that wasn't. I thought that wasn't
move.
gonna. Yeah, no, but I thought that's what the Europa, the Nations League, the Nations League was for. I didn't think that was the friendlies, because if you've got the friendlies that what are moving the games, you know what I mean? Because I don't understand this side for me, because if you've got a friendly and you're playing, I don't know where people are in position wise. That's a good comment, by the way. But if Wales beat Mexico like they did 1-0, does that mean that Wales take Mexico's mantle in their position, or does it just give them more points? How many points do you get for a win? How many? Do you know what I mean? You could be 1,000 points away from the clubs, and you're never going to move. So it doesn't matter if you win, lose, or draw. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to look at the bigger picture. And are we gonna win enough games this year to get us enough points to get where we need to be? I understand that there's more. I always thought that's what the National League was for. If they're making that competitive, and you're getting promoted and relegated, and that replaced the needless friendlies. Apparently, because we've had this conversation on the show, by the way, they are competitive friendlies. That's what people told me. Competitive friendlies. So what are these games now? So the Mexico game, is it a competitive friendly, or is it needless friendly? I'm confused now, because if the Nation League is important, then this is an absolute outrage and a waste of time.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Nations League football has just made me care less about international football. However, like, I don't know, it frustrates me. Like, if I was in Ryan Giggs' position when he was playing, I wouldn't have come to friendlies either. When I'm playing in the Champions League finals and Champions League, and I'm going for doubles and league titles with the best domestic side in the country at the time, and it's like a golden era, I would make sure that I was turning up for the competitive games, but friendlies, I end up binning them off. I'm just being honest, mate.
Yeah, no, it depends. It depends how you look at it. I listened to an interview Robbie Keane did. Robbie Keane talked about friendlies, and he said that he loved playing for his country week in, week out, every game. That's why he's top goal scorer for Ireland, and doesn't probably look like anyone's ever going to beat him. He's a hero in his country because of that reason, because he scored loads of goals in competitive games and in friendlies. And for me, Ryan Giggs probably would have been the most capped player ever in Welsh football. He probably could have been Wales' top goal scorer ever. You know what I mean? By a country mile.
He would have broken all sorts of records.
You know what I mean? And that's as he should have. And that's the only thing. Was it his decision? Was it Sir Alex's decision? Whose decision was it predominantly to stop him from playing for his country?
I've seen. I read Fergie's first book, and he said that he kind of skirted around it a little bit, and he sort of said he didn't necessarily tell him, you're not going or don't
encouraged
go.
Or discouraged.
But he would, discouraged. Like Giggs had a lot of hamstring issues, particularly early in his career because of his running style. So I think Fergie would just remind him of that and say, make sure you look after your hamstrings, and because you're not going to be under the club's care. So he would sort of say, make sure you look after yourself while you're there. So I don't know. I can see it from both points of view, and I understand why fans are so frustrated with him. But equally, I kind of get it as well. Rob Boyle is not joining us live tonight in the chat because he's got a leaving party on Zoom. He messaged me to say he was going to watch afterwards, which is funny because he asked me and Kev whether he should leave his job and go to a new job. And me and Kev told him, go to your new job. And he has. So he's having his leaving party. So I did say to him, there's no refunds. If it doesn't work out, you can't come back and kind of blame me and Kev.
He could have done his leaving party on here in front of loads of people.
Yeah.
He's missed a trick, by the way. He's missed a trick.
There was a comment that one I was going to say, just to do a little bit of promotion while we wait for David. Gaz says, great show with Harry Harris last night. That UEFA official should be fired. So, what he's referring to, I did an episode of my story last night with Harry Harris. I put it out last night. And in it, he discusses one of the stories from his new book, Red Card to Racism, where a UEFA official during an official UEFA meeting, says to a high-ranking member of the English FA that how come Hitler didn't get all the Jews to enter this Jewish member of the English FA, which when he said that story, I was just astounded. Like, you would see, if you watch it, you'll see my reaction. Like, I was utterly astounded.
I think so.
How can we expect people like that to stamp out racism in football or on social media or anything else?
I think it's showing a really darker side of UEFA and FIFA, and I think corruption, and that word corruption has followed them around for so long. It's quite scary, really. You know what I mean? And I think the need to show unity together. They need to start listening to people. They need to start listening to football and coming together and bringing nations together. You know what I mean? Like I said on Friday about countries and nations not being together. You know what I mean? And I think UEFA and FIFA could do that. Do that if they really wanted to. They could bring everybody together and they could all push in the same direction, and then everyone would support them even more. At the minute, we just seem as though they're running on their own and they're running down with a different agenda, and it's quite worrying, really. You know what I mean? Because it's all about the World Cup. It's all about the Euros, and you know what I mean. With what's happened over the last 12 months or plus, I think we've realised that football is not the be all and end all anymore.
Yeah, 100%, mate. It's just one of those things. Just waiting for David to get back. He was having some connection issues, and I think he was finding it difficult to.
I'm leaving in a minute. I'm going to go to that leaving party soon.
Rob's leaving party on Zoom. We'll just go and join him. I saw someone asked about Mason Mount, and I wanted to talk about it. I can't find it.
Me dad.
Where is it? There he is. So Stuart Campbell, Andy's dad, says it's okay to leave Harry Kane out as he will always be in the team, but playing every game would maybe be good for Mason Mount to impress the manager. If I just jump in quickly before, because you're much more equipped to answer this as an Englishman because you've watched it more. Mason Mount has played a lot of football for Chelsea in the last 18 months. He's still only, like, as far as I'm aware, I think early 20s at the most.
Yep.
Like, to me, players like that who are like early 20s, the ones who've played week in, week out since the football came back after the very first lockdown, they're the guys who need a break now, because they're the guys who've, like you said, played for like a year and a half straight. And I do feel like maybe their managers are not looking after them. Remind me to ask you about Donna's comment as well when you've answered your dad's comment.
Yeah. I think players at a certain age, and you look at clubs, certain clubs who rotate. Chelsea rotate, so Mason's been rotated. He's played some of the high-profile games, so the bigger games. But I think Gareth needs to see him in a competitive game. He needs to see him in probably a couple more competitive games. So the game, can he unlock the door against a lesser side who sit 11 men behind the ball? Can he go and play in quite a hostile place of Albania? And can he be kicked to pillar to post? And can he make things happen? Which he did. So he's ticked both boxes. You know what I mean? Can he do it in a high pressure game? I don't think you'll ever get that in a qualification with England because of how easy the groups have been. Can he do it in a Euros or a World Cup? Well, that's still unanswered. He's going to answer that himself. He's got to get that opportunity, and the only way he's going to get those opportunities is if he plays and does well week in, week out. Because I look at Raheem Sterling. Obviously, Raheem played both games as well, which is surprised. It surprised me probably the most out of the lot. And for me, Mason was the standout player out the two. You know what I mean? Even Phil Foden, Mason and Phil both played a similar role. They both played on the right, which didn't really make sense. They were both doing a similar job, both taking each other's positions. But Mason obviously got a goal. He created chances. He looks dangerous. He glides past people. He's a very confident young fella. And listen, the future's bright for England and Chelsea and the Premier League, because we all know what's good players and people entertaining us. And if they're from that country, then even better. But yeah, I'm interested and intrigued to see if it can carry on long term. So,
a couple of really good points in the chat on this kind of debate about players missing friendlies and being rested. Rob Lay says if Cardiff lost Kiefer Moore or Harry Wilson, it would dent in their promotion hopes. 90 minutes of added international football is bound to increase fatigue. And then also you've got like you've got a couple of people who said you've got to be really careful. Like, look at Michael Owen. He was worn out by the time he was hit 20. His hamstrings were knackered. He lost pace, and he was never really the same after that World Cup where he scored that goal against Argentina. Like, he still had a great career, don't get me wrong, but he was never quite that same striker. He had to adapt his game. And also, someone else said, and I can't find the comment now, but that's why Giggs had a longer career than most footballers, because he managed his international career to be able to have a break. And then the last one I wanted to say was Donna said she'd be happy for Kiefer Moore to miss international friendlies if, that she wouldn't care if he missed international friendlies. And I think, like, for me, I feel the same way. I don't know what you think, but
I think that the need looking at. I think as a manager, you know what I mean. Like Mick McCarthy, he must be on edge while his players aren't there, because he's sent. Obviously, Pacuna is away playing international football, flying here, there, and everywhere, and playing games. You've got Kiefer Moore, you've got other players in the Welsh squad, you've got other players at other levels travelling away, and all he's doing is hoping for that phone call after a game that, yes, boss, I'm fine, or at the end of the window, the international window, that I'm fit and ready to play. But then you've got that added extra that you've got to wait until they come back to see what state they're in, mentally, physically. Are they ready to go and play in a big championship game? And if they're not, then the whole thing's been a waste anyway. The last 10 days that you haven't seen them, who's been looking after them? Who's got their best interests at heart? Who's been given? Have they had enough rest? You know what I mean? People think, oh, of course they are. They're just sat in a hotel. They're not doing anything. Well, they're training twice a day, potentially. You know what I mean? They're travelling and flying to different places. They're playing in a game, competitive game. Wales have been, to Belgium? Flew to Belgium, trained, flew back, played in Wales. I don't know who the next game is this week, but
I think it's Belgium again.
Belgium again at home, so it's going to be another physically demanding game. You're not going to see a lot of the ball, so you're going to be doing a lot more running. So you've got to take all these things into account. And I've spoke countless amount of times, Si, about Kiefer Moore, how selfless he is and how much running he does. I know this isn't the Kiefer Moore show, by the way. This isn't me saying anything, but he does more running off the ball, closing down. And when you've got a team like Belgium who are going to keep the ball, he's going to do more running. And with more running becomes fatigue. With fatigue comes injuries. And I'm so hopeful that come Wednesday night, Thursday morning, when he turns up to Cardiff City for training, for hopefully a cool down, Friday morning when he turns up, he's fit and raring to go for the championship, because they pay his wages. And they paid a huge transfer fee for him as well, by the way.
Indeed, mate. Spot on. Couldn't agree more. Gaz says, look after young players and they will repay you. And I think that's right. I've sent David a couple of messages. I'm not sure what's going on, so we're just going to have to do it on the fly. Me and Andy have got everything planned around talking to David, so we're going to just do it on the fly, like we are more than capable of doing. Joe Ledley's gone to Newport County, mate. What do you think about
that? For both, I think it's a good fit. Listen, a good fit. You know, I spoke to Joe and told him, said congratulations. I think it's he wants to play football. He wants to help out a club, and they got an opportunity to get promoted to League One. So, I hope he's that final piece in the jigsaw which can help them do it. Because for South Wales football, we all want to see Newport County get promoted, and we want to see the club being successful, and we want to see good things happening. And if that's a Cardiff boy doing something good and scoring the winning goal at Wembley again, because he's notoriously good at that, that'll be pleasing to see. So yeah, good luck to him.
Spot on, mate. Donna asked a question. I can't find it now, but it was really interesting. One for the Googlers who like to Google stuff that we're talking about. Is David Giles the only footballer to play for Wrexham, Swansea, Cardiff, and someone else I can't remember who? Like the Wrexham, Newport, Swansea, and Cardiff. Like the full Grand Slam.
Full house, isn't it?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, full house.
Listen, I wonder if anyone else has done that.
I think, and we spoke obviously off air. I think there's if that's whoever that is, if that's Dave, by the way, because if Dave's still doing the social media from West Auckland, I hope you're well, and everybody at the club, by the way, everyone's safe, and hopefully I'll get down to catch a game. It's a big achievement, you know, Si, for players to do that. Probably more daring than I would be to move from rival to rival and then
twice
back again. So people have got thick skin. You know, footballers do though. You know, and I know we spoke about people and fans helping players and making sure that they get a good welcome. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, if a player doesn't do it for that football club, and it's because of fans giving stick out to players, then the fans are the one who's getting punished again. So they're punishing themselves indirectly without really noticing or realising they're doing it. Because if you give praise and positive comments to a player and he scores the goals, or he wins the tackles, or he keeps clean sheets, or he saves a penalty, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter how you act to a player, because he's paying for your he's playing for your club and he's getting paid by your club. So for me, back your players regardless where they're from.
100%, mate. So we'll do the other tell me why, mate, just because it's quite a good little topic to talk about. And the topic question is, one of the FA Cup finals is going to have fans. What do we think of that, and is it fair? Time starts now.
It's great news, by the way. I think there's going to be 20,000 fans at Wembley, which obviously will be better than nothing. I still think we can have a little bit more. But listen, 20.
Oh, breaking news, mate!
Nothing.
Go on.
I'm not a big fan, because I know a couple of friends of mine are playing the week before at Wembley for concert against Hebburn Town in the FA Vars, and they're not allowed any fans, and they could really do with the revenue, they could really do with the money. So if it's a week's difference, I don't see why you're allowed and other people aren't. I just think we've got to be fair here. You know what I mean? If we're not having any fans at Wembley for the rest of the season, then let's do it for everybody. Let's not pick and choose who has it, because there's going to be some big clubs, by the way. But then you've got the added extra as well. If you're a fan of a club who's at Wembley, how do you decide who's getting a ticket as well? Because that opens a massive can of worms, because you've got 20,000 fans between two clubs. It probably won't even be 10,000 each, because the FA will get involved with so many tickets. So, you know what I mean? You're probably looking at 6,000 fans for a team who gets 60,000 fans at home for a home game. So it's going to be difficult.
Time's up there, mate. But I thought that was well said, mate. I think it's a bit unfair on the other FA Cup final and teams, and it kind of gets into we discussed before with the VAR not being at every FA Cup game.
Yeah,
does that make it an unfair competition? And I would question, if you've got two semi-finals, they should be in the same set of circumstances and rules. But we'll get to that in a minute. David, welcome back. How are you, my friend?
Back, David.
I tell you, I'll keep disappearing, lads. I'm like the invisible man.
In the hands of technology, it's not much we could do about it, so we'll just go. But a bit of breaking news for us to discuss. At the end of this season, Sergio Aguero is leaving Manchester City. That fascinates me. His contract's run out, so he's free. Andy, if you take out like him, maybe not wanting to go to a rival, there's a few of the top four clubs in the Premier League who really need a striker, a goal-scoring striker.
Yeah,
he would be perfect for that, surely.
Oh, listen, I think he's given so much to the Premier League. He's given so much to Manchester City. You know what I mean? Just that one goal alone would have been enough. You know what I mean, for the Man City fans with it against the QPR winning the title on that last day. But he's given so much to them. He's given so much service for someone who's got no affiliation with the club or the city or England. You know what I mean? So he's done amazing. I think it's a fitting way to bring out this kind of news. I think it's amazing for him and an opportunity for him to go and play somewhere else. I think he's made the right decision to go and play in a different country, because I know he's been quite critical of the weather when he first came. You know what I mean? It rained all the time in Manchester, so you know what I mean, which is what it is. But I think, you know what I mean, he's earned that hero status, and signing for another Premier League club, he'd get that taken away overnight, and he's not that naive and not that stupid. You know what I mean? He can go and enjoy his football. He can go anywhere he wants. If he wants to wind down and go and play,
I think he'll go to the MLS.
In the MLS and go and sign for David Beckham or something. Then you know what? Good luck to him, because he's earned that right to go and enjoy a couple of years in the sun and enjoy his lifestyle and play a few games along the way, because he's earned that right.
100%. David, I wanted to get your take on something. It's been announced, or it looks like there's going to be one of the FA Cup semi-finals is going to have spectators, about around 20,000, but one isn't. Do you feel, I don't know, I feel like that's a bit unfair. Do you think that it should be the same for both semi-finals?
Oh my God, of course you should, Simon. You can't do that. You cannot let one game have 20,000 there, and then the other game with nobody there. That no, you've got to split it equally. I don't know who's making that decision, but I'm sure that there'll be huge protests about that. That's an insult to football fans, really. And I would think that the fans who were lucky enough, if they did get 20,000 to split between these two teams, I would like to think that they would say, no, hang on a sec, that's not fair. What about the other two teams? We're all in it together. Andy said earlier on the start of the show, it's been a tough time for football clubs, but even more so football fans, because that is their life on a Saturday. People like myself and Andy, we were the ones that turned up at the ground and we just played. But when you're a fan, the build-up and the excitement, and I've seen that now that I'm out, not involved in football. You go over the pub and they're talking about it on the Tuesday or the Wednesday, about the game on Saturday. So I think that is a shocking decision, Simon, and I hope that doesn't happen.
And the thing is also, it's for me, David he's just mentioned a good point for me. Who's making these decisions? Who's accountable?
I can tell you
who's accountable? Because for me straight away, that's a red card. You know what I mean? And I mean, if someone's made that decision, vote them out, because they don't have the goodness of supporters' backs. They don't want supporters back in grounds, obviously. You know what I mean? Because they don't care. You know what I mean? Even for me, 20,000 is a lot of fans, but in a bigger scheme of things, if that's Liverpool against Man United, it's small fry. You know what I mean? And you're going to upset more people about who can't get a ticket. But then if Watford make the semi-final against Leicester City, how can you justify that those supporters can't get to watch their fans at Wembley? It baffles me how people get to these decisions.
So it was the culture secretary, Oliver Dowden, who told the BBC this. He said that there'll be up to 4,000 spectators at one of the Wembley semi-finals, and then the following weekend at the Carabao Cup final, they might test an attendance of around double that, with the possibility being that there'll be 20,000 fans at the FA Cup final. So basically, they're going to have about 4,000 spectators at the one semi-final,
which is 5%.
And then about 8,000 at the Carabao Cup the following week. But for me, for the integrity of the competition, and I'm not talking about COVID or anything like this, just purely the integrity of the competition. If you've got two FA Cup finals, semi-finals, they have to be in the same circumstances.
Yeah,
they have to be at neutral ground. If there's fans, there's fans. If there's not, there's not. They both have to have VAR, or they don't have VAR. And Andy like we discussed it last season, when there was FA Cup games going on in the same round, where there was VAR at some games and not VAR at other games. That's ridiculous. You can't have a competition where there's different scenarios and situations.
I went for a walk with my old man at the weekend, and I know he's obviously watching the show, and he knows exactly what I'm going to say now, because I'm not happy about this, because we spoke about how you can fit so many people into a ground safe. Listen, if you're sat in a seat and you're not sat next to someone who's 5 seats that way, 5 seats that way, 5 seats behind, 5 seats forward, you can fit more at Wembley than that measly 2,000 or 4,000 fans. That's an absolute outrage. It's disgusting to even talk about it. Don has just put something in the chat there about, I know it was a tongue in cheek about so many people being in Tesco. I can go to school and I could be sat in a classroom with 30 kids around me and 4 adults. You know what I mean? So let's not start making these kind of decisions and think you're doing it for the right of football. Or you're doing it for the right of health reasons. People can still wear masks. You're in the outside because there's no roof on. I just think that there's a bigger picture involved here, and for me, just say there's not going to be no football fans for the rest of the season, and at least everyone will know where they are. Everyone will know that when they come back, it's safe. Because, you can look around the world. I watched Israel against Scotland yesterday. There was a decent amount of fans there. I watch Australian football live every Saturday morning, every Sunday morning. All the grounds are full. People are sat next to each other. I watched the cricket.
Australia have got
it's nearly
right
full.
From the start, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. Yeah. So hang on a minute. So let's not blame football. They're using football as a scapegoat now, and the things aren't going to get at. This is being done, in my opinion, from the government, and the government has caused their own problems, and now they're blaming the supporters in a round circle that they're going to make things worse. Behave yourselves. Give your head a shake.
Yeah. Well, can you tell me who Oliver Dowden played for?
Yeah, that's it. He's a politician, literally, and as we know,
get him on the show.
Do not like politicians. Do not like football. They do not like football fans.
No.
They will blame anything they can, and they will obstruct and they will cause issues with football and football fans as much as they physically can. They always have done. David, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's switch towards you and your career. What's your very first football memory?
Very first football memory, obviously, Sam, would be in junior school. Being chosen to play for the school, and I think I was 88 years of age. I lived in a part of Cardiff. It was a council area, really, Grangetown. We didn't have any football pitch, just a yard. So to play football every Wednesday, we'd have to march 20 minutes into to the local park. But we loved that because it meant that we weren't doing any work in school. So that was it was good. But yeah, that was my start. Really was at a school called Court Road School in Grangetown.
How passionate, David, were the young people around you, and obviously you about football? Because obviously living in Cardiff and living in Wales, I understand how important rugby and football is to the people of Wales and the city. But how important was football to you as well as other sports?
Oh, massive, absolutely massive. And yes, if I'm honest, Andy, probably our national game is rugby. And I think all Welsh football fans, as much as we don't like to admit it, but it is. It's they say there's nothing more like than a day out at the Millennium Stadium or the Old Arms Park, as it used to be on a rugby international. But with the strength of our national football team now, because we've become a decent team, we're not a pushover anymore. We're regarded, we're respected. And Wales, I think, have become a decent scalp if you beat Wales. So we've always had that passion. I do feel that you don't. Perhaps this is me being the age I am. Don't see as many kids over the local parks playing football anymore. That's those days seem to have gone. I think there's a lot of other things they can do now, but there's still a lot of passion there for lads who want to play football, and of course rugby down here.
I totally agree. Me and Si, obviously, we both got young kids, and I know my dad watches the show religiously, and every day after school, I'd come back, I'd play out football out the front, I'd use the garage door as a goal, or you go to the local park and you do this, or you go to the beach, or I agree. The amount of kids now who have everything on the doorstep ready just to do active stuff, to play football, to do other sports, and to be kids again. Instead, they'll play on computers, they'll go on devices, mobile phones and things. And I was so proud and so glad that I never had that opportunity to have all them things, because life was fun. Football was fun, and I think people have got a little bit muddled up and complicated with what's available for them, because I think with being locked down, I think we've got sick of the things what we've got in our houses: devices, TVs, computers, iPads, phones, etc. And when we get opportunities to go out for that hour when we were allowed, and now that we're starting to do a little bit more normal things, that people hopefully will realise how important it is to get back outside in the fresh air, and kids can go to the park and play football and just be kids again, because how are we gonna make the next Gareth Bale if he's sat playing on his Xbox? How are we gonna make the next Aaron Ramsey if he's choosing not to go outside because he's not used to it? I just think kids need to be kids, and kids need to go back outside again and just have that opportunity to go and get muddy and just do what we did.
That's right, Andy. Dead right.
Spot on. David Will in the chat asks a great question, which I want to put to you. He says, why do you think football clubs with all their modern facilities struggle to bring through youth players?
Yeah, that's a good question. And to be honest, Si, that is something that has definitely happened at Cardiff City. Myself, I'm a big advocate of this. I was a local boy. I came through the system as we didn't have academies then. It was schoolboy training on a Tuesday and Thursday night. I was 10, 11 years of age, but you'd be training with 15-year-old boys. You'd be getting knocked about, and I didn't like it at first, but as you get older, you get used to it. But again, perhaps, I don't know, is the right thing to say, but I just think the game has changed so much, where I was coached, and I'm sure Andy would have just been around the time. We were coached by ex-pros who had experience, had knowledge, had know-how. I see too many people coaching our future football stars that have just come out of university. They've got all the badges, they've got the car washing, cleaning, swept the house. They got an armful of badges, but they've got no football nous, no football savvy. And a young kid wants to pick your brains about who did you play for? What was it like playing against him? And what was it like, to be a footballer? That's what they want to. And I'm sure there's still enough quality or lads who finish the game that want to get into coaching. You don't have to, set out cones. I always remember an ex-coach, he's not coaching now, and I said about, the way they coach kids now. It all seems to be cones here, cones there. He said, Gilo, the cones are great. He said, but they don't tackle you. And
David, but what about following on from your point there that how can someone with all this singing and all dancing qualifications who've never played the game tell a young player how they're going to feel when they have a bad game, how they're going to feel when they pick an injury up, how they're going to feel before a game, nervous, excited? Because for me, there's different parts of the game. You know what I mean? You can be a coach who does the technical side and the tactical side and has got all this experience within the coaching, which is great. But then if you've not played the game, how are you going to feel during a game, before a game, after a game? Because there's more to it than football. And I look at I've been quite negative on the PFA that I think they can do a lot more for ex-players and push them in a direction towards one of their former clubs of pass their experiences on. We had Klaus Lundegvarm on 3 weeks ago, who's going back into Southampton as this kind of coach to help young players and guide them how they're going to feel before, during, after games. And he's not a football coach. He's more of a life coach and a mental coach for these players, and that's what people need. You know what I mean? Forget sometimes the tactical side. Yeah, I'll use Robbie Savage as an example. Not being disrespectful to Robbie, but Robbie's always quite honest about his ability. And that he wasn't the best footballer in the world, but I tell you what, if people had his mental ability, they could go a long way. And if people and he could get into a football club and tell people how to get in the side in their own heads, like Robbie got in his own head, then tell you what, with people who've got the ability that they've got an opportunity, because the technical ability of a footballer now, a young footballer, is amazing, but the mental side and the opportunities they get, which means that they fall by the wayside. And I seen a piece in it was on the social media platform this week, and James Coppinger put it on. It was a Man United side, an under 13 Man United side, and there was 22 players on the picture, and this was 4 years ago, and none of those players now are playing football. That is heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking for the kids, heartbreaking for the families, and hopefully none of them suffer with mental health. Hopefully none of them do anything stupid, and hopefully they all have a good and fulfillful life, because it's such a shame that because are they getting the right guidance? Did they get the right coaching? And I don't mean the coaching as in like David said, that somebody put cones out and told them how to dribble around them. You know what I mean? And play a game. Did they get the right person to tell them that there's a level for everybody, and if you get an injury that you will get better. It might just take 6 months to get better. You know what I mean? Because injuries are part and parcel of the game, but unless you've had one and you can give that experience to somebody, I just find it really, really uncomfortable that people can hide behind a badge and say that they're a coach.
Dead right, Andy.
It's having a football person being able to tell you, look, we're releasing you because you're not good enough at age 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, whoever it may be, particularly if you're at Man United, where that's one of the biggest clubs in the country, one of the biggest clubs in the world. As a kids who are in academies, and I know from my own boys, they think every game that if they play badly, they're never going to be a professional footballer again, because there's so much pressure and nerves on them. And if you haven't got the right coach telling you, how to control your nerves, how to get ready for the game, how to get over a bad performance, that could be really damaging really quickly for young kids. Reese has made a couple of really good points, which I just want to touch on with the youth system. He says back then clubs had no money, so like Cardiff had no money, so they were forced to find youth team players. The money within football and the higher end leagues means that they won't risk playing youth players because you get so much money for finishing higher up the league. And then he said a bit further on, he said there was a club in League Two a few seasons ago, and they actually got fined for fielding a weaker side because it was full of academy players. But they also received a bonus for each academy player making a senior debut. So you get fined and rewarded on the same day.
For the same point.
Ludicrous.
And things I'll say on that comment though, you know what I mean? For me, it's about and David will tell you back in the day, and even some teams now, teams have a philosophy, and the team's philosophy might be, and I'll use them as an example. A club, Carlisle United over the years have been a selling club, so they'll get players like Matt Jansen, probably the most famous player to ever come out of Carlisle United, centre forward. They sold him to Crystal Palace for £3 million. They've got some good players now, young players that they are notorious for doing that. So they've got to spend money on their youth team. But if you're a buying club and you spend money, then what's the point in having a youth team? You might as well save yourself some money and not bring players through, because you're giving players false promises. You know what I mean? That what did the figures are? What if you're lucky? 1% of footballers make it as a professional footballer. So then look at a football club on its own. Look at Man United then. So what percentage of a Man United footballer makes it? If it's 1% for the whole of football, at one club it must be even smaller than that. So it must be 0.01%. So it's that's outrageous. You know, you can look at Cardiff City. Cardiff City now, they've got a couple of players in the match day squad in the team, which is fantastic.
Yes.
Obviously Joe Rawls came through. Obviously one of the, you know what I mean, back in the day, because obviously he played a hell of a lot of games. But before this season and before probably Joe, you know, you're probably looking at the James Collinses, you're probably looking at the Ernie's, the Danny Gabbs, you know what I mean, and
Joe Ledley.
And Joe Ledley.
Yeah.
It's too Aaron Ramsey. It's too long. You know, it's too long.
It is too long.
You know what I mean? And look at the kind of money that Cardiff made from those players. You know what I mean? If that process works, do it again. Do it again, because it works. It worked on Aaron Ramsey. It worked on James Collins. It worked on Gabardon. Worked on Ernie. If it's working, just try it again.
Only quickly, Simon. One of the questions the guy put to you was saying about clubs don't play young players because of money and where they finish in the league. But I totally think that's rubbish. Listen, if you've got a player, and again, this goes back to my point about having ex-players in these academies, because they can see, they'll pick out a kid, they'll go to the manager and say, listen, give this kid a chance, or have him training with you, the first team, because he's a little bit special. He's got something about him. He's got half a chance. So they can do that. I don't think these coaches who've got all the badges can see things like that. They may give them all the drills and the technical, where they have to play and the systems they've got to play. But I'm sorry, I think managers, a lot of them, bottle it, really, with giving young players a chance. And I'm also not a fan of under-23 football. I think if you're not good enough, around about the 20 mark, then your club have got to make a decision. And be fair to the lad, because I think if you keep him there was a boy at Cardiff that got released a couple of years ago, a full-back. He'd been at the club since he'd been 7. And he was 22 when they released him. He only played 2 or 3 games. He's now playing for Solihull Moors, or in the National League.
Cameron Cox.
You got him. That's him, man. That kid would deserve a chance. I saw him play a few times, but because the first team players, and he was as good as the right back at the time. I'd said, I think this kid can slot in here and play at full back, but.
We've said the same thing, David. If Cameron, for me, Cameron played 2 games last year. He played in a League Cup game, which they got beat by Luton. He rested all the players. He didn't play the week after. He wasn't even on the bench. FA Cup, he did the same. Didn't get the opportunity under Neil. Neil liked his tried and tested players, but Cameron's at an age there where he's got to go and play football. He's got to reinvent himself, because you know what I mean, David. We've had this debate on the show with various people. For me, bring back Pontins League. Reserve games, you know what I mean? Play 16, 17, 18-year-old kids against grown men. If you want to play in the reserves, then fantastic. You can be 30, 35, go and play in the reserves, go and get fit, and go and test yourself against a 16-year-old kid and see if you're good enough still to play, and vice versa. And that's the only way. I loved it. It was great for my development. It was great for me to keep fit if I wasn't playing. but I agree. 23 football for me. Who picked? Why 23? Why not 21? I don't get it. Who decided he's kind of an age? You know what I mean? 23 because you're allowed to play overage players. Forget that. You know what I mean? If you're, I agree with what you've just said, David. If you get to 20, 21 and you've not made your debut, then go and try at another club. If that's Chelsea, you've got a job down to Bristol Rovers. Then go and play and go and make name yourself like Joe Jacobs did at Wickham, and he's built himself up, and then he's in the Championship player. Because I tell you what, it looks like Wickham are going to get relegated this year. Yeah, exactly. It looks like Wickham are going to get relegated this year. It'll be interesting if George Jacobson's not a Championship player next season, and he leaves to go to another club because he's established himself as a top draw player now. So he deserves that opportunity. So you know what I mean, there's a level for everybody, and I just think this continuation of lower league football at 23 football, non-competitive as well, is just a pointless exercise.
Yeah, that is the problem, Andy. It's non-competitive. Like you just said, I was brought up in the football combination. You know, at 16, 17, you empty stadiums, but you're playing at Highbury, White Hart Lane, Stamford Bridge. You know, and you walk out just as a kid, and you look around and you think, I want to come back here and play when this place is full. And that's inspiring, you know. But that's all gone, sadly. It's all gone.
I totally agree. I think I told you the story that I made my first reserve game at Filbert Street against Leicester City in Middlesbrough, and there's something like 3,000 fans there. I got in the car with my dad after the game, came to watch, and that's the first thing I said to my dad when I got in the car. I want to come back here as a Premier League player, and I want to play in front of a sellout because that was my dream. Because I ticked the box. I was playing. I just got changed in a first team changing room. I was playing against first team players. Yeah. Everything felt like a first team game, apart from the crowd wasn't there in every stand, but there was crowds behind me, so it was still meant a lot for me, and that's what got me going.
No, dead right, Andy, dead right.
David Geraint Cole asks, he says, is he right in thinking that Arsene Wenger was never a professional footballer? And I think Mourinho also, I think Mourinho might have played a little bit, but not a great deal. Like, I think we're not saying that you have to have played football to be a coach or to be involved in these youth systems. I think the point being more that you need people who have at least experienced football to a certain degree to be able to relate to it, because there's so many people involved in football, particularly at youth team level and kids level, who they've got the qualification, but they've got it as a job and a qualification rather than being interested in football or having played football, even at a Parks level. Like, I know at least a couple of coaches in the local Cardiff area who are coaches. It's their job, and they're good with the kids, but they don't even play football recreationally. So how can they relate to a bad game or whatever it may be? It's difficult, isn't it?
It is, and the guy who's put the question saying about Arsene Wenger, Mourinho, and listen, take nothing away from them too. There'll always be people who have not been players will come through, and you cannot not knock them for what they've achieved. But just look at the top now: Guardiola at Man City, Gunnar Solskjaer at Man United. We seem to be getting a lot more football people back in managing top football clubs, and they know what football's all about. They can relate to bad things. I'm sure Solskjaer, and that's why some of the young players now at Man United, he spent a lot of time coming off the bench, you know, and not playing on a regular basis. And he's got these lads, you know, clued in for when they get the opportunity. He's not afraid to play them, and he puts them in. Guardiola, as we all know, is a master. You know, he's what he's done in the game, a top class player. With Barcelona, won everything as a player, has won everything as a manager. Not just in Spain, he's done it in Germany. He's also done it now with Man City. So, it's a good question what the guy said, but the players or managers who've not played the game and just come through, they will always be far and few between. The majority of top quality will have played the game because it's in us. We're not bricklayers, we're not plumbers, we know, and if we were, we'd know all about plumbing and bricklaying. We're footballers.
Yeah, quite right. Just before, I know we're going to finish off on kind of Cardiff and Swansea stuff, but a couple of comments I just wanted to refer to. Craig Sullivan says Cardiff City didn't play Aaron Ramsey in the cup final because he was too young, which was a massive error.
Huge.
Craig also says, who was the manager at that time, Andy? And
Tells a story, doesn't it?
Well, there you go. And Will Malus also says, Cameron Cox marked Mbappe out of the game at the Toulon tournament in 2017, but Neil Warnock just didn't fancy him, did he? And I think that's what it comes down to.
But opinions of football.
It's just a shame.
Yeah. Again, what we're saying here with Cameron Cox. Cameron Cox was a good footballer, and unfortunately, Neil wants his defenders to put that ball 60 yards in the channels. He's been very successful at it, the same as Mick McCarthy now at Cardiff is doing the same way. But unfortunately, and I don't want to upset Andy with Middlesbrough, if Middlesbrough go back up to the Premier Division, you won't stay there playing that way, Andy.
Yeah, listen, the Middlesbrough won't get promoted with the way they play. It's just
no.
And this is what I've said all along. Listen, he's there to serve a purpose. That's what he does at his football club. He sets his stall out. I've never seen a football club have less of the ball in my lifetime, and that's to the two clubs that I fell in love with. And it is what it is. It's not a game which I enjoy watching. The results are better than the eye. Which if there weren't, then I don't think he'd be where he is. So he's quite fortunate that he gets results. Just moving back to, so I mentioned there, David, that obviously Cardiff and Swansea. Obviously, I want to talk to you about obviously signing for Cardiff, moving to Swansea, and then obviously moving back to Cardiff City after being successful playing for the Swans. So, firstly, how did the Swansea fans take it after playing for a rival? And then, obviously, how did Cardiff eventually take you back when you signed back from playing for Swansea as well? Because obviously, not many people do it. Not many people can live that kind of memories.
No, actually, it was good for me, really, Andy, because the way it was done, when I left Cardiff, we were going nowhere at the 78, 79, and I had a great opportunity. Like you said earlier on, if you were not playing regular and things were going a bit sour, Wrexham sold Mickey Thomas to Man United, and the Wrexham manager, Arvin Griffiths, he took me to Wrexham as a replacement for Mickey. And in 10 months, I learned so much from Arvin Griffiths. He was a fantastic player, but he taught me about getting into the box, where you need to be, don't run in front of the strikers, hold your run. He taught me so much about the position that I had such a good time at Wrexham. Within 10 months, Tosh, who was then at Swansea, and they were on a roll going up, he made a good offer to Wrexham, and that's how I went from Wrexham to Swansea. So the Swansea fans knew I was a Cardiff boy, and I'd played for Cardiff. There was a few rumblings in the first 4 or 5 games. Fans shouting, "Get back to Cardiff, you so-and-so," and as they do, and and you have to take that, but. Then all of a sudden things turned. Tosh actually played me up front alongside him, so it was like a Kevin Keegan type of role. Yeah. And I just grabbed the opportunity and started scoring goals for fun. And I think I said to you earlier on, Andy, a goal I scored, which doesn't go down very well with the Cardiff fans, but it was my job. I scored the winning goal against Cardiff for Swansea on New Year's Day, 1980. I'm always reminded in Cardiff when I go out, but as I say to the fans, look, it was my job. I'm a Cardiff boy. That's what I'll always be, and I'll support my local club, Cardiff. But I was being paid to play for Swansea, with a good side, some smashing Welsh internationals in that team, great manager, and why shouldn't I score? An opportunity came up, and I scored the winning goal. And I know 4 or 5 Cardiff players. Phil Dwyer, one of them, tried to absolutely kill me. When I look at the replays, how I got out of that unscathed and without a mark on me is unbelievable.
But you know what? It's a credit to you saying that, though, David, because you know what I mean. I think it's so refreshing. You see players now not celebrating goals. You see players who decide not to get involved. You know what I mean about moving clubs, and sometimes they'd rather sit and be comfortable not playing than take that opportunity to go and play for a rival club. You know what I mean? For me, it's a short career. You know what I mean? If you get an opportunity to go and progress, you know what I mean? If you didn't go and sign for Swansea, you'd have never played with the best manager you've ever played under, which is John Toshek. You never played alongside him. You'd never scored all the goals that you did. So, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. For career-wise, it was a masterstroke decision.
Oh, it was absolutely huge, and obviously, Andy, getting promoted to the old First Division as it was, it was, they were fantastic times, probably the most exciting times of my career at Swansea. But obviously, with being a Cardiff boy, it was funny. I won Young Player of the Year for Cardiff City in 1974, and I won Player of the Year for Cardiff in 1988.
Quality.
When I came back. So, at least I did my bit when I came back as well. And actually, Andy, I played at left back.
Why was that? The older you got, did you have to drop back further back? That's what happened to me. That followed me around that. Centre forward to left wing back, left back. Game over.
Yeah, game over. That was it. All of a sudden, the back legs were going, so they were moving me back further and further. But I finished my career at the club I started. I couldn't ask for anything more than that. I'll always be grateful for Cardiff for bringing me back and letting me finish my career there. And I think I repaid them as well for that. And the fans voted me Player of the Year.
Was that always the plan then, David, to finish your career at Cardiff?
It was, in my mind, it was when I left and played for, played up in London. It was always in my mind. I would love to finish my career where I started, amongst the community, amongst the people I know, and I'm very grateful for that, Andy.
Great job.
Good shot indeed.
Fitting way to finish your career.
Yeah, it was. Absolutely was, yeah.
David, on the sort of Cardiff and Swansea, what did you make of the most recent South Wales derby? And also, I wanted to ask you, why do you think neither team has ever done the double in a season? I find that such a fascinating fact.
Scary.
It is scary. Yeah. Well, number one, probably they're not good enough to do the double. I will say the first game at Cardiff when Swansea won 2-0, Swansea absolutely murdered Cardiff. It was embarrassing, really. And it could have been a lot more on the day. But I will say the way Mick McCarthy have got Cardiff set up now, they're very difficult to beat. Now, the thing is with Cardiff, and that's what happened in the last game, Cardiff scored early. If Cardiff get their noses in front, they can defend that one goal for the rest of the game. They'll say to the opposition, well, come on, have a go with this. The opposition get a bit loose. Having said that, Swansea absolutely murdered Cardiff in the second half, but couldn't score. So all credit to Cardiff. You have to applaud, really, great attacking play and great goals and great skill. And Andy will tell you, we would always talk, football is all about players who can defend as well. And there's an art to defending. So if the defence can keep a quality team like Swansea out and not scoring, great credit to the Cardiff team. And they certainly deserve to get the 1-0 win.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we spoke about this, didn't we? It was before the game, wasn't it? That about would the supporters be bothered if they lost the game and that Swansea did the double as long as the Cardiff got promoted? And I wouldn't be bothered because it's all about the end product. It's all about the end goal. But every single supporter on here, Cardiff supporter said no, can't afford to lose the game. It's about this one game only. And part of me gets it. I do get it because I say I'm passionate about my local area, but it's about 46 games, and the 2 games are just another 2 games. Yes, they're big games, but they are just other games as well. And if I lost 2 games and won the other 44, it's a tough one. I do get that, but it's mindset and it's hatred and it's passion, but it's just about points.
No, you're right. Actually, a funny thing for me, Andy, I've been in both changing rooms. So I've been in the Swansea changing, knowing exactly what they're saying in the Cardiff changing room, and probably saying about me. But I've also been in the Cardiff changing room when the Swansea lads are saying, the same thing. In all fairness, if I'm honest, the fans were pretty consistent with me. They always, both sets of fans booed and wanted me not to do well.
David, when we had Mehmet Dalman on before, he talked about the amount of money that Cardiff were losing per month due to the COVID restrictions and no fans and things like that. And that was during the very first lockdown. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's a concern for Cardiff? Like, do they need to go up to really secure the financial future of the club?
That's a good question, Andy. First, you have to say first and foremost that well done to the owners of Cardiff for making sure there's never been an issue with the Cardiff players not getting paid and listen, good luck to them. But these lads are on good salaries as well now. It's not a couple of bob. They're high paid players, certainly in the Championship. And I wouldn't be surprised if Cardiff are one of the top payers, if not the top payers. But yes, you can't keep shelling out that type of money without not getting success. So promotion does become a must thing really to happen for the club. Whether they do it this year, I'm not quite sure. Whether Mick's been there long enough to do that, but with next year, with adding a few more players as well, I'm sure, and the way Cardiff play, the teams struggle playing against Cardiff. That they will be a force again next year, and I'm sure they will be there or thereabouts. But yes, the truth of the answer, they do need to go back up to the Premier Division for the financial reward.
Isn't that though, Si, why managers lose their jobs? Because every year the pressure gets higher. Every year the expectation gets higher. And
I think there's more pressure now, Andy, isn't there?
I totally agree.
Because of COVID.
Because of COVID means less probably money, sponsorship wise, money wise. You're probably not going to get a year's worth of sponsorship. You've got a year's worth of season ticket sales, which haven't happened. TV money, I don't know. I don't know. There's going to be so much revenue lost over a course of 18 months by the time that they probably start getting in the nuts and bolts about it all. They need it back very quickly, but they need Premier League. They need the Premier League money. You know what I mean? Because that Premier League money has kept the Premier League clubs floating around and being able to do what they do, still buying players, still having a plan in place, and even the clubs who get relegated, they're still in a good place because of the parachute money. Cardiff City's parachute money will run out next season, I believe, if they don't go up this year. So that they're in a next season. Is it 3 years? Is it 3 years of the money? So I think it's halved again. So next season will be their last year of extra money. So if they don't go up next year, they won't get that extra money. So if that buys another centre forward like Kiefer Moore, if that brings in the Premier League wages, like David just said, you know what I mean? Let's be honest, some players will still be on Premier League contracts because the Premier League players. So you know what I mean? It's that's why they're losing £3 million a month.
I just want to touch on this because Garrett's not happy at all. He says, come on, 2 promotions earning over 400 million. They are struggling for cash. Leave it out. Looking forward to this year's balance sheet, which should show what we earned last promotion season. So I don't think Geraint's having that. Like obviously Mehmet said, that Cardiff are struggling financially, and they've said that quite openly in more recent times as well. He's not having it. David, like, I don't know what more we can really say about it other than even the big clubs are under a massive amount of pressure. You look at the problems Derby County are having now in terms of just staying afloat and staying in the league. I think Cardiff are doing all right, to be honest, because I look around and I see some massive clubs under real pressure. Sheffield Wednesday, Derby, they're in dire straits. So I don't know. I guess I'll take Cardiff's plight at the moment. David, do you think Swansea or Cardiff will go up this year?
If I'm not, to be honest, about 3 weeks ago, I would say Swansea had a very good chance. I think they were a point or 2 points behind Watford with the game in hand, and they were getting some absolutely fantastic results. But 2 games prior to the Derby game, something's happened. They got beat. They drew at Blackburn. They got beat 3-0 away at Bournemouth. And now they've just lost to Cardiff now recently, last weekend. So something's not going for them as well as it was. I still think they'll be in the playoffs. Cardiff, they've got an opportunity, but I think it's going to be other clubs slipping away rather than Cardiff, grabbing that opportunity. I think they're going to have to rely on other clubs dropping points to try and get into that playoff spot. The one thing I wouldn't like, Si, and I think it would be suicidal for the Welsh nation if the both teams got in the playoff and it was a Cardiff Swansea playoff final.
I wouldn't watch it. I wouldn't watch it.
We had this, David. We had this conversation last year, obviously with the playoffs and the opportunity with the 2 teams going to meet in the playoff final, and that would have been disastrous because it's. And that would have been without fans, which would have been even worse because it piles the pressure on. Even with supporters, I think it would be a bad thing. I just hope. Part of me hopes that the next time the two clubs play each other is a Premier League fixture because there's no bigger game in the UK. You know what I mean? It's on par with Celtic Rangers. It's on par with the Manchester Derby, the Merseyside Derby. You know what I mean? For various reasons. And for me, hopefully, sooner rather than later, it can be a Premier League fixture, but that can't happen next season. One of them can go up.
Move it to the Millennium Stadium.
One of them can go up.
Playoff final. There we go.
Oh God! Good luck at that. Good luck at that one.
David, earlier on, Gavin Randall asked, "What's your favourite memory from your time at Cardiff City?"
Favourite memory. I made my debut. I made my league debut for Cardiff away at Notts Forest. Brian Clough had just taken over the club, and John McGovern had signed. Archie Gemmill was there. You know, they had the nucleus of the team that went up to the First Division. We drew 0-0. It was a good point for us because we were struggling at the time down the bottom. And I remember Brian Clough walking down the tunnel, tapped me on the shoulder. He said, "Well played, young man." And that's something that stayed with me throughout my football life, really. But probably on a par with that, the following week I played at Old Trafford in front of, well, at the time I think it was 52,000. It wasn't as big as it was now. And we were drawn in 0-0 with 20 minutes to go. And they took off a guy called Willie Morgan, who had taken over from George Best. He was like the local star. And they brought on Steve Coppell. It was his debut for Man United. I think our fullback, Freddie Pethard, is embedded in that pitch that he turned inside. We ended up losing 4-0, but it was a great feeling to play at Old Trafford as an 18-year-old kid and to have a good game as well. So that was great. And playing in Europe for Cardiff, that was exciting. Yeah, smashing club. It was a different club to the Cardiff City now. I think it was more of a community club then. We used to travel away on the train with the fans. You know,
David, one question I'd like to ask, and obviously we spoke about with a couple of ex-Cardiff players who had the opportunity to do it about playing in Europe and obviously the Welsh Cup, which obviously give European football to people who won the Welsh Cup and Cup Winners' Cup opportunities. And how important was that? Because Welsh clubs don't get that opportunity anymore, which is obviously contentious. You know, the way that things go, and should that maybe possibly be brought back into it? I don't know if that's possible, but
I tell you what, I would love to be. The Welsh Cup is still going, but it's only for the semi-professional teams now that are involved in it. But it was a great competition, and listen, I've played for Newport County in the final of the Welsh Cup, and we got beat by Bangor City. You know, so it gave the smaller clubs a great opportunity. But again, I was lucky. I won the Welsh Cup with Cardiff City. I won the Welsh Cup with Swansea City. So I played in Europe with both them teams. You know, played it against Martin Chivers when he played for Servette Geneva. And we played Austria Vienna when the famous Franz Krankel was playing. I've never seen a bloke with such a big backside in all my life, Andy. It was frightening. It was like a mule from the back. And he was as strong as one as well. Hell of a player.
We spoke about it, David. You know what I mean? And I just think it's opportunities for clubs. It's extra revenue for players to have the opportunity to play in Europe. Because let's be honest, you know what I mean? The chances of the fans seeing European football again are really slim unless they win the FA Cup, and then you know what I mean? Then you're going into extra qualifying rounds, and you're doing things, but this way that you're guaranteed an opportunity, because apparently they were looking at different avenues of doing an extra European competitions for the lesser nations. So if that's an opportunity, then hopefully you can.
I'm sure teams would rather play in the Cup Winners' Cup or a different European competition created than they would in the EFL Cup, Coca-Cola Cup, the Milk Cup, whatever you want to call it, the Rumbelows Cup. That they'd rather play in a European competition
Yeah, totally.
Listen,
Years ago, we had the European Cup, which is the Champions League. We had the UEFA Cup, which is the Europa League now.
Yeah.
So they've got rid of a cup. We've lost a cup somewhere, and those cups have got bigger.
Supposedly combined them, didn't they, to make the Europa League?
Yeah,
but
I know, but you can
it
still.
was better when there was three, wasn't it?
Then you could still have another cup, and if that's a cup winners' cup, and it's a knockout format, it gives those clubs an opportunities, and then that cup could be a cup to get a Champions League place, for example, to give you more money, more funding.
Yeah.
Well, I liked it when it was the Cup Winners' Cup was for all the cup winners, and the Champions League was for the top two.
But my best memory as a young football fan was watching Mark Hughes. Mark Hughes scoring his 2 goals against Barcelona in the Cup Winners' Cup final for Man United against Barcelona. It was amazing games of football. You know that he's taking on the goalkeeper and scoring from silly angles, and that's what I remember because Man United won the FA Cup the year before against, I think it was Oldham Athletic. You know what I mean? So they got the opportunity to play in Europe. So it opens doors for people, and it's amazing.
Yeah, no, you're right, Andy. It does. It was. You can imagine, you're going away representing your city, your club, your community, the people, Cardiff City, and you're playing in Europe. I've got mementos, badges, and pennants from these other teams. With the dates of the game on and everything else. And it's really a big part of my career, and that's sad that our Welsh clubs can't play in the Welsh Cup because sadly we're only represented now by semi-professional teams, and without being disrespectful, they start playing in June and they're out of the competition by a fortnight later. They'll get knocked out.
Totally agree. And I think it gives those kind of clubs an opportunity to play against professional clubs as well. Because how many times are those guys going to get an opportunity, for example, to play away at Swansea at the Liberty or away at Cardiff City at the City Stadium? You know what I mean? And at Wrexham, these kind of opportunities are once in a lifetime for some professional players. So they should be given the chance as well.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think for every Cardiff fan, and it's something that nobody can talk about European football. No one can take away from the club. And I was there, thank God, as a 10-year-old boy. I saw Brian Clark, who I got to know really well, and I actually played with Brian for Cardiff, score the winning goal at Ninian Park against Real Madrid. Now, there's nothing. How good is that? How good is that? Yeah.
Well, and one of those moments, Dave, that nobody can ever take away from you. You know what I mean? People who were there, watched it. People who played in the game. People who, obviously, the person who scored that goal. You know what I mean? That's hero status just on its own. That.
And I ran onto the pitch at the end and rubbed his shorts. And I think my mother said I never washed for a fortnight.
Oh, there you go. I would never have washed again. I would never wash again.
I'm not. I haven't, Andy, but don't want to say that.
Spot on. David, last question then to finish us off was one which Cade Child sent in a bit earlier. I had my eye on, I kept it. And he asked, it's a subject which we've talked about with various guests before. We talked about it, I think, in deep detail with Jim Platt. Was it Jim? I can't remember. But yeah, we've talked about it before. And David, he says, David, did you get any side effects from heading the ball in the 70s and 80s?
Well, that is a good question. Very good question. Obviously, Cade, is it the guy that sent the question in? Being my size, obviously, I wasn't that brilliant in the air. But what we did, especially back in the 70s, when we used to do heading training, and we did that for an hour under the stand. You had a ball on a long piece of string. Everyone take it in turns, jump and smash the ball as hard as you can with your head. And you do that for an hour. But thank God, when we used to go across the road on the training ground, it would be people like me pinging balls into the centre back or centre halves, and they would have to head it 30 yards over our heads. Now, I say this, a lot of Cardiff fans listening. A good mate of mine, who was my best mate when I got married, Keith Ponting, sadly at 64, died last year. And they're trying to prove it now. But I believe he had dementia. He didn't even know me in the end. And it was heartbreaking to see him. But I do put that down to, especially the balls being as heavy as they were, It must play a part in it. Must play a part.
Yeah. And David, listen, we've spoke about it, like I said, at length, and it's so sad. You know what I mean? You've obviously witnessed it firsthand with obviously someone who's really close to you, but it's really worrying, isn't it? You know that you listen to people. You know what I mean? I know Gordon McQueen, who I'm really close to, one of my ex-managers, coaches at Cardiff, Middlesbrough. Sorry, that. And just, it's heartbreaking for families. It's breaking people. It's, you know what I mean, the people's dads, the people's brothers, the people's granddads. You know what I mean? It's so.
Yeah.
It's just so. I just surely hope that they can find a way of stopping it and finding a way of finding a solution to, you know what I mean? Because I don't believe heading can stop out of football. You know what I mean?
No.
And you've got to be able to head the ball. You know what I mean? It's just I don't know. You know what I mean? It's technique. You know what I mean? I look at Harry Maguire. Me and Si spoke about it at length. Harry Maguire is probably one of the best headers I've seen in the Premier League to date.
Oh,
there's no way in the world he turns up on a Saturday and doesn't practice it. You know what I mean? So he's constantly, repetitively doing it all the time. But we need to be careful. We've got to look after. He's a I don't know him personally, but I'm guessing he's a parent who in the future will be a granddad. And it's, you know what I mean? We've got to make sure that people are fit and healthy by the time they leave football, because they're not performing seals who we're just going to use to keep us entertained for 10, 15 years and then forget about them after that. You know what I mean? They're real people, and we need to make sure that they're fit and healthy well after they pack in football.
Yeah, no, you're right. Well, Andy, you know, you only got to look at if you look at the great England team that won the World Cup, sadly, we're losing these lads now, these players, and it all seems to be with the dementia.
Yeah.
You know, Jack Charlton, there's a documentary on the television tonight, funny enough, 9:00 about Jack Charlton. I've already seen it, and it's sad to see it. But Keith Ponting's, wife, she said to me, she said, I don't think Keith would have been a professional footballer if he knew this was going to happen to him. Because it's 64 years of age. It's a young man still.
There's no age. Yeah, it's no age.
You know, no. And he's got two young girls. Well, I say young girls in their 20s. So it's very, very sad. But yeah, you're right, Andy. You can't stop it. Heading has got to be part of football. I know people always say, well, boxers, you know, they get punched, but I'm sure boxers don't. When they do the sparring, they don't stand there and get punched to the head like they do in an actual match. You know,
headgear, and
head guards and stuff. Yeah, there's got to be something, hasn't there? You know, like Peter Cech when he got that head injury. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's got to be some kind of idea or something that we can invent and implement in football, which keeps people safe on a. Even listen, people might decide to wear these kind of things for a match day, for a game, because rugby they're allowed. You know what I mean? Football,
they do. I tell you what, it's a good point, that Andy. Yeah. That's a good point. The centre backs can wear one of these skull guard, I think it's called.
Yeah, and listen, I'm all for, you know what I mean, if that protects just one person, or you know what I mean, then it's done its job, right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's about protecting people long term and looking after them, because for me they're not just another number, and I'd be heartbroken if people just disperse people after the pack in. You know what I mean? It's if they're 16 or they're 35 or they're 40 or they're 50 when they're packing football, it doesn't matter. We still got to give them aftercare. You know what I mean? If that's mental, physical, you know what I mean? We've got to make sure we're all on the same page here.
Yeah, definitely right, Andy. Definitely.
100%. I think that's a good way for us to finish up. I'm a big believer in, like what Andy's just said, about aftercare of footballers, whether they dropping out of the game as teenagers or they have a full career and finish at 40. Let's look after these guys and make sure they're all right. But, you know, unless everyone gets involved in that sort of thing and makes it a quest, if you like, for us to look after these guys, there's always going to be people who slip through the net, unfortunately. But okay, so just a couple of schedule notes. Wednesday, we've got a new Danny Batten show where we're talking about last Saturday's UFC 260 show, which was an absolute belter. And congratulations to recent guest and friend of the show, Paddy the Baddy Pimblett, who just signed for the UFC today. Congratulations to him. We'll be back on Friday with an all-new episode of the Championship Show, myself and Andy. And Sunday, there'll be an all-new episode of My Story, which is a very personal episode on Sunday. I actually shed a tear or two as I speak to one of my oldest friends. He's an author and a radio DJ. And it's a personal one, to say the least. But a big thank you to Darren Ralston and Bespoke Financial as ever for sponsoring the show. And, of course, Martin and Black Diamond Sports for all their support. Andy, as ever, you, my friend, I just love it. But most of all, the legend that is ex-Wales, Cardiff City, Crystal Palace and Swansea midfielder, David Giles. Thank you so much for your time, David. And I'm really glad that we got to get a good bit of time with you after the technical issues earlier on, because I'm really glad we got to get a good chat with you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, David. Yeah, amazing. Thanks for your time, mate. You've blown me away. Some of your stories, your enthusiasm, your honesty. You know what I mean? And you know what? We don't always get the honesty that we want. You know what I mean, from certain people. But you know what I mean, from you tonight, we've had the honesty that I expected.
Well, listen, you two, I've never done anything like this. You know, obviously, my son actually set it all up because I'm not no technical guru. So that's why I think I had a few problems, and he wasn't here when I went down, so I had to get him back round here. Listen, absolutely, it's brilliant. Just sat here watching, listening to you two, asking questions and just answering them. I really appreciate it, lads, and thanks for all the people who ask questions as well. It's a pleasure for me, an honour. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Yeah, the sign we've said, haven't we? The viewers keep on following, keep on doing what you're doing, because without you guys, this doesn't work. Doesn't work.
Absolutely, mate. And the comments coming in, I try to put as many as I could up on screen just then. There's loads of people just saying how much they enjoyed it, how much they enjoyed David and his honesty and everything. It's been a real good one. I've been really enjoyed it. And I thank everyone. I apologise to people if I didn't get to questions. I know I didn't get to a couple from your dad, Andy, and a couple of others. But such is life and
Don't
technology.
Worry about that. He's alright. He's alright. It's about time. He runs the show. Indeed.
We'll be back live on Friday for the championship show. Spread the word, tell your friends, be good. And in answer to Gavin's question, yes, Harry Maguire is better than Virgil van Dijk.
My mummy and daddy have been talking about life insurance. It sounds like something to protect my brother and me, but I don't really understand. Then my auntie Louise told mummy about Bespoke Financial Teesside. She said they're a local company who helped her with her life insurance. Mummy got in touch, and because they're based locally, a man called Darren was able to come to our house. He was really friendly. Darren stayed for a cup of tea and made it all really easy to understand. He said that life insurance will protect our home and family if anything bad were to happen. Like if mummy or daddy got sick, then we'd get enough money to take care of us, and our house would be paid for so it wouldn't get taken away. After an hour, Darren said goodbye and mummy and daddy seemed a lot happier. Once it was all sorted, we could all relax and watch a film together as a family. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner.